Things are starting to get moving, aren't they, with regards to Arsenal adding new faces to their squad. Obviously, according to reports, it looks like Madueke will join. But the big one that is getting, obviously, Arsenal fans exciting, is Gyökeres making that move from Portugal to England. James, this looks inevitable now.
Yeah, there's a sense of momentum behind it now, I would say, that there hasn't been for quite a long time. I mean, we could go back to last summer when they were looking at Benjamin Sesko at Red Bull Leipzig. He was the player they wanted to sign for this position. He ended up signing a new deal, and they decided to wait. In January, they weren't going to do anything. And then, of course, they got those injuries to... Well, mainly it was Gabriel Jesus. That was the injury that kind of triggered them to go into the market. They made a late move for Ollie Watkins. That was something that was presented to them by Aston Villa. It wasn't something they were looking at. And earlier in that window, they were trying to get Sesko again, but they were told mid-season they couldn't get him. So the expectation was in this window that Sesko would finally be their man. But because Leipzig have not budged on the asking price at all, and Andrea Berta, the new sporting director at Arsenal, has a proclivity for negotiating multiple deals at the same time. He's been talking to the Sesko camp. They've been talking to the Gyökeres camp for a while. They've always liked Gyökeres. He was always on that shortlist, but I think Sesko was ahead of Gyökeres until probably the last couple of months. But because Sporting have started to show signs of a willingness to compromise, and I think the players' desire to move to the Emirates Stadium, and also the agent's desire to waive some of his fee, which has been quite a significant amount of money and has helped bridge the gap between the two clubs, has got us to a point now where we're likely to see Arsenal sign Gyökeres, hopefully for them, in time for them to go away to Singapore for their start of pre-season on Saturday.
So let's go through your provisional starting 11 then, shall we, James? Is this team good enough, I suppose, to compete with Liverpool and Manchester City and win the title?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, you're going to need players to hit the ground running there, aren't you? I mean, Zubimendi's going to have to come in and show that he can control games in the Premier League. If he's going to play as the sort of single six in that system, it's a huge ask for a player not knowing the league to come in as a single pivot and allow Rice and Odegaard to go on as the eights. We've put Madueke in this team on the left in the graphic. I think that's a difficult one to call because obviously Martinelli's the sort of starter in there, but he's not really kicked on in the last couple of years. And I think Madueke's played, he finished the season with Chelsea on the left-hand side, the domestic season on the left-hand side, shows he can play there. And there are some sort of suggestions that he's coming in as a sort of support for Saka. There's an incredible workload on Saka. They ask him to play every game, every week. And Madueke could sort of swap in for some of those matches. But I don't think Arsenal are in a position where they can pay upwards of £50 million for a squad player, really. I think Madueke's probably coming in to stake a claim and start maybe on that left-hand side. And that... I mean, I have to say, I still think there are more questions than answers. I don't think these players are ready-made solutions. Gyökeres, a goal a game, more or less, for Sporting, 96, 98 and 100, or something like that. You know, an incredible record, but not proven in the Premier League. Madueke, my understanding is that's more of a data-led signing than anything else. I think Arsenal have looked at some of the underlying numbers, not necessarily goals and assists, but more of what he can produce with and without the ball. And they think they can really help him kick on in a way that maybe he hasn't quite done at Chelsea. But again, you're asking a player to improve beyond the levels that we've currently seen. So, look, I like a lot of what they've done, but I think to sort of say, well, it's not as though they've gone and got Alexander Isak to play in that position. And you go, okay, wow, all right, fair enough. The guy's proven in the league. You kind of know what you're getting, guaranteed 20 goals minimum. Gyökeres could easily go and do that. But I do think there are more questions than answers at this stage about this group.
Don, can Arsenal win the league with that team?
I think they can, but I mean, there's a lot of context to it. I mean, can they keep their discipline? I mean, that was a thing that harmed them last year. What's Arteta going to be like? Because the players sort of feed off his energy, and sometimes he goes over the line, and sometimes the players follow that. And 4 or 5, 6 red cards last season. My initial feeling, looking at that 11, my answer is no. But I don't think they'll be a million miles away. I think they'll be close. But I think, you know, when you look at what Liverpool have done with Florian Wirtz and Frimpong and Gyökeres, they're building on top of what they've already got. And Man City have certainly built in the January window and in the summer window. It's going to be tough for Arsenal. my instinct says no, my gut feeling says no. I think they'll be short again. Absolutely, and he will be the one that fires Newcastle to a Premier League title, him and Isak this season. No, I love him. As I said before, he's like João Pedro. I like that centre forward. That's very reliable. Being a midfield player myself, and Stevie will understand, it's very important that you've got a centre forward that can link the play and can play the width of the 18-yard box and is reliable, so you can make your runs off him, and he's trustworthy. Also, on top of all the talent that he's got. And I think the biggest difference when you compare him to Darwin Núñez is Darwin Núñez is very erratic, and he's fast-paced in front of goal, where Ekitike is that little bit slower. Now, trying to find a formation where they can all get in, this is what I've come up with. I don't think a 4-4-2 would suit Newcastle because their strength is the three boys in midfield, so I wouldn't have thought Eddie Howe would move away into a 4-4-2 and lose one of those three. So it looks to me, if Isak stays and Ekitike stays, that's the system, the 3-5-2 that they could play. Inter Milan played that, Inzaghi played that, and they played that with two centre forwards. So, I mean, I'm joking when I say that could fire Newcastle to a title, but my word, that is pretty impressive, that 11.
So where should their ambitions be then, Don, this season?
Staying in the top four, Dan. The last time Newcastle got in the top four, and they actually walloped, if you remember, they walloped PSG at St James's Park, didn't they? They walloped them. They beat them 4 and could have been 7. It was embarrassing for PSG that night. But that season in the Premier League with a small squad, Newcastle finished 7th. So they couldn't handle on a small squad Champions League football and all the emotion and all the domestic football and handle the Premier League. Their squad wasn't big enough. So if they can get Ekitike and they can, make sure that Alexander Isak stays on top of Gordon and Barnes and Alanga and Jacob Murphy, and as I said, the boys in midfield who are sensational, they should be pushing for a top 4.
Don, thank you very much. Just a reminder to keep you up to date with all the latest transfer news. Be sure to check out Transfer Talk over on the website.